Welcome back. I've got Jeanine Charlton on the line. Jeanine, how are you?
I'm doing well this morning, Michael. Thank you. How are you?
I am awesome. Really looking forward to this conversation. So, for those that aren't familiar with your amazing work, why don't you share a little bit about you, and then we're going to jump into this really great and important conversation.
Terrific. Well, I'll start by saying that I've spent my entire career in technology leadership roles in the automotive, transportation, supply chain, and manufacturing sectors. I actually started my career at EDS, and I've also worked at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, DXC Technology, and now most recently Merchants Fleet. During that time, I've held a variety of leadership roles at these companies to include program manager, account manager, general manager, VP, and then most recently as the SVP and Chief Technology and Digital Officer at Merchants Fleet. Prior to joining Merchants, I actually served on its board before joining the company in 2018. And I've also, during this time, have held global roles where I've led teams as large as 4,000 people globally, and I've managed a P&L north of $1.5 billion on an annual basis. Final thing I'd say is I've had the privilege of also having an expat assignment in the UK. And throughout my career, I've lived in some pretty great places: Michigan, Virginia, DC, Chicago, and now most recently in New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's quite the journey, and all those experiences, much like my career, I've been fortunate to work for all kinds of different industries, and I always make sure that you know, the tools and skills that I pick up along the way, I put them in my tool bag, and I've used them all the time in everything that I do. And when people ask me, well, where'd you learn how to do that? And I'll have to reflect on it for a moment. Like, okay, did I learn that when I was working in IT during the dot-com era, or did I pick that up later on with the market research company, or did I pick that up just because I was watching training videos and reading
Yeah.
O'Reilly books or whatever? It's you name it. There's all kinds of different skills, but they're all transferable, and it's one of those things where I think the smart organizations recognize that. They say, okay, wow, you've got some experience in different industries, and of course with your background being in automotive and transportation and supply chain, those intertwine so much that throughout your career growing up in it and working in different aspects gives you a really broad picture and understanding of how things work and how everything works. So when you're reviewing needs for merchants or wherever you happen to have worked, you have a bigger picture than many people that took the career path that was kind of singular in nature and just kind of went up, and they didn't necessarily get the exposure in the other areas.
For sure. I feel very fortunate in that regard. And to your point, right, these skills are all transferable regardless of the industry, even though I've had a variety of industries. I think, to your point, it really does help to, I think, bring a lot of value when stepping into either a new role or a new company to help kind of accelerate the value that you can add on a pretty quick basis.
So I always ask people this because it's still relatively fresh, and you joined the organization in 2018, just a couple of years before that period of fun that we had, which fun may not be the right word for that, but I'm sure it was definitely a challenge for your role and your teammates, and obviously being in information technology and understanding all the parameters about it. What was that experience like for you?
During the pandemic?
Yes.
Yeah, it was really interesting because, stepping into this role and then 18 months later, we're faced with probably one of the bigger, I think, challenges that I've certainly experienced in my lifetime, right? We were at a time where even though we were a 60-year-old company, right, we were kind of on a new path to growth, and we were growing faster than any of our competitors in the marketplace. And we were, in need of raising capital to continue to fuel that growth. And we're going into a pandemic when most of the investors in the banking industry was saying, not possible, don't do it. It's not a smart move, right? And we actually doubled down and decided to commit to investing, because the vehicles that we provide for our respective clients were all deemed essential use vehicles, right? So we had a great responsibility in order to lean in, and it paid off, right? Our growth was exponential during that time, and technology was certainly playing a big role in terms of, right, how do we make sure that we have the right tools in the hands of all of our employees to kind of drive what we called operational scale to kind of keep pace with that growth, while at the same time kind of pivoting and meeting the demands of our clients, because the demands were changing during the pandemic, right? There were things that we were asked to do that we never envisioned that we would have to do, hadn't even really thought of at the time, but we were able to quickly pivot and kind of couple our innovative spirit with the use of technology to kind of capitalize on that market opportunity. And we were rewarded as a result of it. So while it was challenging and complex to navigate, it was extremely rewarding from a business perspective as well as from a personal perspective to be able to be a part of that during that time frame. So I feel really fortunate.
Yeah, you should. And I've had the fortune to communicate with a lot of people that were similar during the pandemic. And instead of kind of taking a back seat, they doubled down when maybe logic or their boards or whatnot were saying maybe we should just kind of sit tight a little bit. And it's like, no, now's the opportunity to go do this. And I'm sure that with your board experience, you were able, and the leadership team were able to present to the board why this was the right move during this time when just human nature would be like, let's wait and see kind of thing. But it's you got to be brave sometimes, or most times, and especially in business, and it tied in with your plans for growth anyway. And it because you did that, you were able to be successful and take advantage of, I don't want to say less competition per se, but the other players in the industry were telling you, no, now's not the time to do that. Okay, well, that's typically the exact time to do it. When everyone is saying no, say yes. And sometimes fortune favors the brave, and that's definitely what happened in your situation.
Yeah, and I think this industry in particular, right, the fleet management industry, historically is risk averse, right? So you could see why perhaps they weren't going to lean in, where, for us, we just really embraced our innovative culture and felt this tremendous responsibility to help our clients. So we were willing to take more risk, and it paid off.
Yeah, too, especially during the pandemic with various things. And you alluded to it before, there were certain periods of time where, okay, we need to have this. Okay, well, we need to transport this, whatever this was, whether it was breathing machines for hospitals or masks or other supplies that we were short on, whatever happened to be, you need people out there to be able to move those things around when most of us were told to stay home. So, navigating through all of that, again, that goes back to your expertise in supply chain and logistics. Again, it's one of those things where, I'm not trying to get your raise here, but boy, were they smart to hire you, because you had all that experience to be able to navigate all of those things. Because again, many people that find themselves in the role that you're in now don't have that other experience with supply chain and logistics and production and manufacturing. When you have all of those skill sets, you can bring those to mind. And again, this is not an advertisement for you, but I'm just again impressed, that there's people like you that are out there, because it makes a huge difference, when it comes to being strategic about a variety of different challenges that come up every day.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. No, my pleasure. And I think too, the follow-up question I have for you is, now that we've kind of navigated through, I'm hoping the worst of it, I haven't seen the official banner saying the pandemic is over type of thing, but I think people have pretty much gone on their way, and businesses back to whatever normal is, if there is such a thing. But where do you see things going over the next couple of years? Because there's all kinds of things still going on around the world that creates some interesting challenges. in your industry and other industries that you've been a part of.
Yeah, and I think in our industry in particular, right, we've been affected by a couple of macroeconomic factors that just certainly didn't exist during the pandemic, right? One being the cost of capital, right? We're a very heavy asset management based company. And, with the continuing rise of interest rates, and we're not seeing the decline that we expected certainly to see this year, it's become really important for us to make sure that as we look at kind of our portfolio of assets and how many of each asset type, that we're carrying, that we're very mindful of that, coupled with the fact that residual values on vehicles as well, have kind of gone from historic highs during the pandemic to now historic lows. So we've seen kind of both ends of the spectrum all within a couple of year time frame, which I don't think has ever been experienced, at least in my career and probably many others up until this point as well. And so we're kind of really looking ahead and, hopeful that at some point things will level out. It will return to what will become kind of our new normal. Because managing on both ends of those spectrums, certainly has presented its challenge while you're trying to balance, right, the cost of inflation and how do you price kind of your vehicles, at least in our short-term side of our portfolio, such that we're being fair, but we're also being responsible to, covering our costs as a company and making a fair profit as well. So it's been really interesting kind of during this time frame to see us go from where we were to where we are and still, wanting to deliver kind of a great service to our clients and continue to grow, which we've been fortunate in that we have been able to continue to grow as well. But it's been a really interesting journey for sure, Michael. Yeah.
I bet, and too, there's challenges in a variety of different sectors, and fleet management is, definitely not excluded in this. Is just getting parts for vehicles and parts for all kinds of different things was really problematic for a while, and might still be. And again, with the cost of everything going up, like, okay, how do we manage this, remain profitable without being perceived as gouging, our customer base, which we're not, but it's everyone's feeling it. So,
Sure.
and like you said before, there was an expectation that the interest rates would start to decline, but based on the inflation numbers and the policies that the Reserve is looking at, they're like, no, we'll keep them where they are. Can't promise we won't raise them, but I wouldn't expect any type of reduction until maybe later in the year. But again, there's so many other external factors going on in the world right now too, that can indicate all kinds of different challenges. The global strife, the conflicts that we have throughout the globe, which has a direct impact on supply chain and logistics and all of that, which makes things harder, because part of being a global economy is, with economies of scale, you can acquire certain things at a more affordable rate than if they were made domestically per se in certain regions. But on the flip side of it, if that area where you get them from is a war country now, and ships aren't getting through, all of a sudden they have to take the long way around to get those parts to you. Those are costs that have to be passed on, which ends up being problematic. And if you don't have the infrastructure domestically to start building those things again, it's not like you say, okay, well, we're going to start making those tomorrow. No, you have to retool factories or whatever type of mechanisms that are out there or build them. And then, of course, you need the supplies to build those factories, and you can't get the supplies. It's this endless cycle of, okay, now what? And so it's not a quick fix, but I think understanding, what you do and understanding the work that you've done in your past, at least you have a framework you can look at. But as you said, the last couple of years, the pendulum has swung so far from one side to another. It's to the point where, can this thing go in any other direction? It's like we're used to up and down. Is it going to go sideways? What are we looking at? So it's definitely interesting. And I'd venture to say exciting in a way, but I'm sure you'd much rather it be a little bit more normal, whatever that is, than it has been, to say the least. I mean, there are some people in the world, and I'm friends with some of them that love the absolute chaos of this, and like you are warped, my friend. But that's just my personal
I
opinion.
think a little less chaos would be welcomed, right? I think, normal for too long, you have a tendency to lose your edge in your kind of innovative entrepreneurial spirit, which I think we really pride ourselves on here at Merchant. So I think as long as we can kind of keep that alive and well, right, that we'll continue to do great things for our client and be opportunistic kind of in the marketplace, looking for new opportunities.
So you've got the sounding board. What do you want to share with the public and with your clients, not only your current ones but future ones, on the innovations that your organization is going to be rolling forward down the road, without giving away the Colonel's secret recipe, of course. But
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll continue to lead in, to technology advancements, right? Whether it be through taking advantage of, advanced analytics and AI technology, right? Just, that kind of blows my mind in today's environment, just in terms of kind of the rapid pace at which that technology is advancing. But we'll look for ways to be opportunistic in that regard. Also, just continuing to build out our connected vehicle solution is another big focus area for us at the company, as well as continuing to enhance our ability to help our clients kind of through the ordering process, right? And when to cycle vehicles and when to order new vehicles. So kind of the use of technology there, coupled with, I think, some really great consulting skills and capabilities that we have within the company, are areas that you'll see us really continue to invest and focus on.
it's exciting times for you and your organization,
Yeah.
and leveraging AI and other technologies. And I agree with you. It's I get a handful of newsletters, and just the amount of things that are rolling out is just literally more rapidly than we can fathom, is insane. But I think, much like everything, in a way, it sort of reminds me of the dot-com era, in that there was just so much newness about it, and there was all these different things, and then eventually the dust settled, and like, okay, here's what they are. But it's beyond comprehension in some areas. Like, wow, I never really thought that they would use AI to be able to leverage that aspect of things. But I think ultimately it boils down to streamlining where we can, improving the customer experience, being able to utilize that with, you'd mentioned consulting, getting a better understanding of the individual customer, because you have all your customers, and yeah, they're all different. There's similarities, and you sell them certain products and services, but coupled, with getting the information and analytics from that customer and adding a personal touch, will be able to let your organization fine tune even more, to the point where it's almost to the point where you're inside that person's heart and brain, your customers, and saying, it sounds like, Phil, that you would really like to venture out into this aspect of things, but there's something holding you back. What can we do to tweak that? And all of a sudden they're getting like this feel of, I am the only customer of your company, and you're treating me like a royalty. So I love that, and I think that's what AI and everything else is going to be able to do.
Yeah. And probably things that we don't even kind of comprehend or imagine at this particular point in time, which is exciting.
Absolutely. So love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and this amazing work you're doing?
Well, you can look me up on LinkedIn, and you can certainly learn more about Merchants on our website at merchantsfleet.com.
I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So Jeanine, thank you so much. Always good to talk to somebody originally from the Great Lakes state. And I wish you nothing but success in all of your future things. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you, Michael. I really enjoyed our conversation this morning. You take care.